Did you see that? It happened so quickly, it might have not registered. But something happened here that I thought would never be possible in Honkai's Star Rail. Okay, we're in MOC, Firefly uses her skill. And super break damage on an enemy that isn't weakness broken. This isn't simulated universe. Not that you could even do this in simulated universe. It's not a special game mode, and it isn't a modded version of Star Rail. This is just what the upcoming character, the Dahlia, enables in her base kit. Not even the most copium-addicted Firefly main could have dreamed of something like this, and yet here it is. A fundamentally game-breaking buff for Firefly, being given to her at E0S0. The singular weakness that kept Firefly from just being an insta-clearing nuke on her release, and gatekeeps her from viability in the current meta. Gone in an instant. When I saw it, I didn't believe my eyes either. This is the most unthinkable, meta-shifting kit addition since the introduction of Super Break itself. However, that's not even the craziest thing that came out of all this, because in spite of just how profoundly absurd that the Dahlia buffs are, they're not even close to being enough to make Firefly a meta unit again. So this begs the question, if all of this isn't enough to bring Firefly back, what is? We're giving away 3 Star Rail monthly passes to the community. Subscribers who comment on this video and at least one other on the channel will have a chance to win. And I'll be reaching out to the winners in the second week of December to deliver the passes to your account. Best of luck in the giveaway, and thank you to our sponsor for making this possible, LD Shop. Gacha games are an expensive hobby, but with LD Shop, they don't have to be. LD Shop is a safe and reliable game top-up site created by LD Player Emulator, which offers unbeatable prices for Wineric shards and other in-game purchases in Honkai Star Rail, as well as Genshin Impact, Wuthering Waves, and other games. If you use the affiliate link below, you'll receive a 15 and 5% off coupon, which can save you up to $50 in Honkai Star Rail purchases. All you need is your server and game ID to top up, and if you spend over 80 USD in 1 month at LD Shop, you'll get a free supply pass. Thank you to LD Shop for sponsoring this video, and be sure to check them out using the link in the pinned comment and description. Us Firefly mains have suffered enough. Ever since we arrived in Amphorius, everything's gone downhill. Sure, they might throw us a bone with an anomaly arbitration mechanic here or there, but otherwise, it's been nothing but weakness lock, summon buffs, 2-starred Forgotten Hall stages, and the most unhinged build theory crafting you've ever seen in your entire life. Firefly's tragic fall from grace is something we've not only clearly seen, but have definitely felt even harder. I made a video about Firefly's decline a few months ago, and the points I brought up apply even more now. But there are plenty of other factors that have emerged, which makes it even more Fireflover. Her place in the meta is largely dependent on 3 circumstances: how easy the enemies are to break, how many targets are on field, and most importantly, how much HP you have to burn through. Unfortunately for our girl, this is just about the worst the game's ever been for her in every single one of those categories. Let's be honest with ourselves here. We're in month 7 of Honkai Castor's Rail, and that's not going to change anytime soon. Patch after patch, all we've been seeing is quantum weak AoE content with a toughness bar even bigger than the Dahlia's massive hat. So if you aren't eliminating all the boss's ads with your break team, and don't kid yourself, you aren't eliminating the boss's ads with your break team, you have absolutely no chance of clearing. And while HP scaling gets a new unit every other week, break comps have completely stagnated. I know what you're gonna say, I'm just being a doomer. My E6S5 Firefly team can still clear in 7 cycles. Skill issue, L drama baiting, stop being mean to my favorite sex pest Tectone. I've heard it all before. But because it's my sacred duty as a Star Rail content creator to show that everyone else is wrong, I ran the calculations. Here's a graph of the top 15 most used DPS units as of 3.6, with relative appearance rate on the x-axis and relative cycles to clear on the y-axis. So characters who show up above y equals 0 clear MOC faster than the average cycle count of 4.08. And characters who show up to the right of x equals 0 appear more frequently than the average rate of 16%. Keep in mind that this is based on data from Prudwin with a fairly limited sample size, meaning that certain outlier characters will have drastic effects on the averages. Characters in the top right quadrant are above the point of balance and are rightfully overrepresented in usage. Units like Evernight, who are popular, solid meta characters all around. Not currently pictured is Castorus, who is so obscenely busted that her usage rate is, quite literally, off the charts. Characters in the top left are also above the point of balance, yet are underrepresented in usage, aka underrated units, aka literally just Cypher. You know, someone should maybe make a video about her. Anyways, characters in the bottom left quadrant are below the point of balance, yet are used more frequently than most, aka overrated units. This includes fan favorites like the Herta and Phynon, who don't quite match up to the top meta picks in terms of power, but are still run quite frequently in the current meta. Surprisingly, both Kafka and Heistlands appear in this quadrant, meaning Black Swan is a significantly higher performer than the other dot units who are generally viewed as stronger. Honestly, I don't have a great explanation for this. Bottom left, however, are the underused, underperforming characters. The lower you get down the graph, the worse performing they are, eventually getting to the absolutely wash units like Saber and Acheron. By the way, if I linked you here, that means you left a comment on my Fate collab vid spouting some nonsense about how I was wrong to call Saber bad. So in case you were wondering, here at the bottom is what the absolute floor looks like in terms of unusable, washed trash can units. Fueled by copium alone, they perform drastically worse than any relevant character, and absolutely nobody even bothers to drag them out on field when attempting Memory of Chaos. Oh, and here's Firefly and Fugue. So it's not just Firefly mains being entitled scrubs. Every metric you could find all points to the same conclusion. Break is completely doomed. It's almost like pushing the same exact meta for over half a year straight is bad for character balance and the overall health of the game. But just when all seemed lost, we were given hope with the rise of another character who seemed just as dead as Firefly. Constance, aka the Dahlia. Much like how Heistlands was promised as the savior of Dot, the combined hope of all Break character mains was put on the shoulders of the Dahlia, and at first glance, she certainly did not disappoint. It's clear that she was designed with a singular goal in mind, to bring Firefly back into the meta. With the aforementioned super break damage to non-broken enemies, solid toughness shred, frequent follow-up attacks to trigger break damage, plentiful skill point generation, and a trace that may as well have said give speed and energy to Firefly and a giant middle finger to every single other character in the game. It finally seemed like the wait was over, and us Firefly mains would be setting the seas ablaze once more. And then gameplay started coming out. It's not like the Dahlia is completely unusable, but it became obvious that this wouldn't be the same case as Heistlands, where she'd immediately revive the archetype just by existing. Unlike Kafka, who had gotten an absolutely massive buff just prior, Firefly's kit is still in a rough spot, investment notwithstanding. And the last time I gave Hoyo the benefit of the doubt in buffing the V1 beta character, I had to bust out the ukulele and make an entire apology video. No matter how you look at it, the Dahlia just isn't a worthwhile pull in her current state, given that she still doesn't bring the archetype to the top levels of the meta. Yes, the buffs she gives in a vacuum are some of the strongest we've ever seen, and if she were released back in 2.6, they need to make an octuple S tier for her and Firefly alone. But the current state of the game is so fundamentally unaccommodating for Firefly that even without needing to break to deal break damage, she's still barely clinging on to relevancy. I know this all sounds like I'm complaining about my lobster being too buttery and my pulls having too many 5 stars, but the fact of the matter is that Firefly needs so much more to become relevant again. So beyond what we already have, what more could there be? Firefly's whole thing in lore is about being unable to dream, so to help her achieve her goal of even dreaming of becoming meta again, the Dahlia needs to actually enable sustainless break. Funnily enough, in the Dahlia's current state, Linksha is a better primary DPS than Firefly, since the Dahlia's weakness implant, along with her need to receive healing to maximize efficiency, both work perfectly for Linksha's kit. With the Dahlia, Linksha has more frequent attacks, better AoE damage befitting of the seemingly never-ending AoE meta, allows for another break support, and of course, she actually sustains. So it still never really makes sense to use Firefly as a main DPS. This would also allow for a more risky but unique playstyle, since the stainless Phynon is all but dead these days. Yet even with Linksha, and the other break DPSs for that matter, the main issue is still the insane HP inflation, which makes her damage irrelevant to begin with. The best thing, of course, would be for Hoyo to stop cranking up the HP knob and let us clear content without the newest unit. But we have a better chance of getting playable Screwlum than that. I do think though, that the answer lies in a character we briefly touched on earlier, Heistlands. Heistlands was a great example of how to revitalize an archetype that was entirely gatekept from the meta due to the lackluster DPS output. And this was done not by making their teammates deal more damage, but by making the enemies take more damage, and also making their teammates deal more damage. So what do I mean by this? Well, it's fairly simple. Heistlands' talent inflicts enemies with every type of dot effect in the game, and if they're in the bleed state, they take a percentage of their max HP and dot damage in relation to Heistlands' attack. I think for Firefly, and break DPSs in general, to overcome the insurmountable HP barrier in the game, the Dahlia needs to do something similar. Rather than scaling off of the Dahlia's attack, it needs to scale off of her targets, so something along the lines of this. If the dance partner has over 200% break effect and 2500 attack, when they deal break damage, the enemy takes damage equal to 10% of their max HP. I have absolutely no idea if those numbers are atrocious or not, but that general concept would bring the Fireflies and Rappas of HSR back into relevancy, with their defense ignore and res pen playing a larger role, while keeping characters like Lingsha and other cheese picks from ruining the whole thing. So the lengths that the Dahlia as a unit needs to go to bring Firefly back into the meta probably sounds absolutely ridiculous. And you know what? I agree. The fact that she's a literal must pull if you want to actually be able to use the characters you invested for is disgraceful. And the sheer number of hoops Hoyo needs to go through in terms of how powerful they make the Dahlia's buffs is really an indictment on the state of the game. In this insane meta that we're currently in, is it really worth pulling for a unit to bring back a relic of the past? For myself and a still growing army of Firefly truthers, it's really a no-brainer. But from an objective point of view, it does seem like a fool's errand, especially when there are so many fools that are just around the corner. Thank you for watching. More Star Rail videos coming soon.
Anyway, $4 a pound.